Handsome Jack Brisco. This guy was a master wrestler, a true technician inside the ring. But like with anyone, his career wasn't without a little bit of controversy, and ultimately his tragic death reserved him a spot at the top of our list of talents gone too soon. Let's get into it. Born in 1941, Jack Brisco was a natural athlete. A standout wrestler in high school and college, he quickly made a name for himself in the world of professional wrestling. Known for his incredible strength, amateur background, and a devastating figure-4 leg lock, Brisco was a force to be reckoned with. But it wasn't just brute force with this guy. Brisco was a master of technical wrestling. He could out-grapple the best of them, wearing down his opponents with a methodical, scientific approach. He was a true student of the game, and it showed in every match. Brisco rose through the ranks, capturing titles and captivating audiences across the country. He was a top draw, a main event player, and a true champion in every sense of the word. But even with all his success, there were a few whispers of controversy that followed him throughout his career. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. First up, we've got the curious case of the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. Now Brisco was NWA World Heavyweight Champion, which is a huge deal, but how he won the title raised some eyebrows. See, he won it from Harley Race, but Race had only just won it from Dory Funk Jr. Some folks felt like Dory got robbed, and that his dad, a big-time promoter, pulled some strings to make sure Brisco didn't beat his son directly. It all happened pretty fast, which made people even more suspicious. Another thing about Brisco was his wrestling style. He was all about technique, grappling, and wearing his opponents down. Some fans found it a bit boring. This was the 70s, remember? High-flying and crazy characters were starting to become popular. Brisco was more old school, a throwback. Not a bad thing, just different. And finally, even though he was world champion, Brisco mostly wrestled in the United States. He didn't really travel the world and defend the title like other champions did. Some say this held him back from being even bigger than he was. Sadly, the wrestling world mourned the loss of a legend, Jack Brisco, in 2010. He was a true icon, a man who had dedicated his life to the sport he loved. His heart, which had pounded with the rhythm of the ring for so many years, finally gave out after complications from open heart surgery. Jack's journey began in the humble setting of a body shop, a business he ran with his brothers in Florida, but his passion lay elsewhere, in the electrifying arena of professional wrestling. He rose to fame in the 1970s, his name synonymous with skill and showmanship. His legacy was etched in the annals of the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame and the WWE Hall of Fame, a testament to his enduring impact on the sport. Even in his later years, Jack couldn't stay away from the roar of the crowd, making occasional appearances at wrestling events. His spirit was irrepressible, his love for the sport undimmed. But time, as it always does, took its toll. Jack battled bouts of pneumonia and back problems. The echoes of a life lived in the ring. Although he is gone, his legacy still lives on. And to give him a homage here is a quick rundown of his epic career. If you are a real fan, please stay till the end. I'm sure you'll leave with a happy heart filled with nostalgia. Jack Brisco grew up in Blackwell, Oklahoma, in a family of 6 kids. Wrestling was in his blood. Inspired by legends like Lou Thez and Danny Hodge, young Jack began his journey on the high school wrestling team, where he quickly became a star. He wasn't just good, he was unstoppable. Jack was a 3-time state champion and even excelled on the football field as an all-state fullback. But his true passion lay on the mat. He turned down a football scholarship from the University of Oklahoma to wrestle at Oklahoma State University, where he became a 2-time All-American. The highlight of Jack's amateur career came in 1965 when he made history. That year, he won the NCAA Wrestling National Championship, becoming the first part Native American to earn this prestigious title. Fun fact, during his senior season, Jack wasn't taken down even once. Talk about domination. Jack's transition to professional wrestling was smooth, and his impact was immediate. He kicked off his pro career in 1965, wrestling for the National Wrestling Alliance. That same year, he won his first championship by defeating Don Kent for the NWA Missouri Junior Heavyweight title. It was clear Jack Brisco was a force to be reckoned with. Throughout the late 60s, Jack wrestled in various NWA territories, picking up titles left and right. He won state championships in Oklahoma and Arkansas, and teamed up with some big names, including Haystacks Calhoun, to claim tag team gold. Jack Brisco's peak came when he became a 2-time NWA World Heavyweight Champion. His technical skills, athleticism, and toughness made him a standout in an era filled with legends. Even Lou Thez, one of the greatest of all time, called Jack one of the toughest and most skilled wrestlers of the last 50 years. High praise, right? Jack also formed an iconic tag team with his brother Gerald Brisco. Together, the Briscoe brothers captured multiple NWA World Tag Team Championships. And if that's not enough, they even helped discover a young Terry Bollea. Better known as Hulk Hogan, they introduced him to legendary trainer Hiro Matsuda, and the rest is history. In February 1969, Jack Briscoe entered the Florida wrestling scene with a bang, winning his first title, the NWA Florida Southern Heavyweight Championship, by defeating the Missouri Mauler. This was just the start of Briscoe's rise to fame. Although he briefly lost the title back to the Mauler, Briscoe reclaimed it in July, solidifying his position as a dominant force. Around the same time, Briscoe ventured into tag team wrestling, teaming with Ciclón Negro to win the NWA Florida Tag Team Championship. Though their reign was short-lived, Briscoe was unstoppable in singles competition, holding on to the Southern Heavyweight title until late 1969, when he took a brief hiatus to wrestle in Japan and Australia. When Briscoe returned to Florida, he had a new partner in crime, his brother Jerry Briscoe, who Jack had trained in professional wrestling. Together, they became a dynamic duo, winning their first NWA Florida Tag Team Championship in February 1971. The rivalry with the Funks, Dory Jr. and Terry, began here, with the brothers trading the titles multiple times throughout the year. Jack wasn't just a tag team specialist, though. He also dominated the singles scene, reclaiming the NWA Florida Television Championship and beating stars like Terry Funk and Dick Murdoch to regain the Southern Heavyweight Championship. His rivalry with Murdoch even led to a controversial rematch where the title was held up, keeping fans on the edge of their seats. In 1972, Briscoe took his talents to Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, where he added 2 NWA Eastern States Heavyweight Championships to his growing resume. He defeated big names like the Missouri Mauler and Rip Hawk, proving he could shine in any territory. But Florida was where Briscoe truly belonged. In June 1972, he captured the NWA Florida Brass Knuckles Championship in dramatic fashion, only to vacate it the same day. That November, he won his third and final Florida Television Championship. Teaming with Jerry again, the Briscoes reclaimed the NWA Florida Tag Team Championship, kicking off another golden era for the brothers. Now let's talk about Briscoe's crowning achievement, the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. This was no ordinary title win. Briscoe was set to defeat Dory Funk Jr., his longtime rival, but an unexpected twist changed everything. Dory claimed he was injured in a truck accident, leading to speculation that the Funk family was protecting their legacy. Instead, Briscoe faced Harley Race, who had just dethroned Funk, and on July 20th, 1973, in Houston, Texas, Jack Briscoe became the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. As champion, Briscoe defended his title against the best in the business, Johnny Valentine, Abdullah the Butcher, the Sheik, and even Giant Baba in Japan. Though he lost the belt to Baba briefly in December 1974, he regained it just 4 days later. His reign finally ended in December 1975 when Terry Funk claimed the championship, but the Briscoes vs. Funk's rivalry only intensified from there. In the mid-70s, Briscoe traveled across the wrestling world, winning prestigious titles like the Memphis version of the NWA Southern Heavyweight Championship and the NWA Missouri Heavyweight Championship. These victories solidified his reputation as a wrestling icon. Back in Florida, Jack and Jerry Briscoe continued their tag team dominance. From 1977 to 1978, they won multiple NWA Florida Tag Team Championships, defeating teams like Ox Baker and superstar Billy Graham, and the deadly duo of Mr. Saito and Mr. Sato. The brothers also captured the NWA Florida United States Tag Team Championship multiple times, often regaining the belts in thrilling rematches. The Briscoes didn't stop there. In Georgia Championship Wrestling, they won the NWA Georgia Tag Team Championship twice. Their rivalry with the Funks carried over to Georgia, with the Briscoes ultimately taking the titles from them. Jack even became the first ever NWA National Heavyweight Champion by defeating Terry Funk in a tournament final. By 1980, Briscoe returned to his home turf in Florida. Teaming with Jimmy Garvin, he won another NWA Florida Tag Team Championship. Then, he reunited with Jerry to claim the titles once more. Jack also won his final Southern Heavyweight Championship by defeating Bobby Jaggers in 1981. The Briscoes ended their Florida run with 2 reigns as NWA North American Tag Team Champions, defeating the likes of the Funks and Assassin No. 1. In 1981, Jack made his mark in Puerto Rico with the World Wrestling Council. Right away, he proved why he was one of the best, winning the WWC Caribbean Heavyweight Championship on May 30th. Jack held on to that title for an impressive 7 months, showcasing his dominance in the region. But he wasn't done yet. Teaming up with his brother Gerald, the Brisco brothers took on Los Pastores, better known as the Bushwhackers, and captured the WWC North American Tag Team Championship. Though their reign lasted just 6 weeks, their matches left fans buzzing. As always, Jack didn't stick to one territory for long. He headed back to Missouri later that year and took on Ted DiBiase, a future legend in his own right. Jack defeated DiBiase to win his second NWA Missouri Heavyweight Championship, further cementing his legacy as a top-tier competitor. While his reign was brief, just 3 weeks before he lost to Ken Patera, Jack's reputation as one of the most talented wrestlers in the game continued to grow. By 1982, Jack was back in familiar territory, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, where he'd already made a name for himself. This time, he reignited his rivalry with the fiery Roddy Piper, defeating him on May 10th to capture the NWA Mid-Atlantic Heavyweight Championship. Of course, Piper wasn't one to back down, and the two traded the title back and forth in a series of intense matches that had fans on the edge of their seats. After Piper, Jack's next big challenge came in the form of the Paul Jones. These two had their own back-and-forth battles, with Jack reclaiming the championship multiple times during the fall of 1982. It was a time when every match felt like a main event, but singles competition was just one part of Jack's story in Mid-Atlantic. The Brisco brothers became one of the most feared and celebrated tag teams of the era. Together, they captured the NWA World Tag Team Championship 3 times. Their rivalry with Ricky Steamboat and Jay Youngblood is the stuff of legend. These two teams faced off in countless classics, with the titles switching hands in dramatic fashion. Jack and Gerald's first victory over Steamboat and Youngblood came on June 18, 1983. This win kicked off an epic feud that saw the belts change hands multiple times over the next few months. The Briscoes ultimately reclaimed the titles in 1984, defeating Wahoo McDaniel and Mark Youngblood in yet another unforgettable match. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Jack and Gerald were making moves that would reshape the wrestling landscape forever. The Briscoes held minority stakes in Georgia Championship Wrestling, and in 1984, they helped convince the majority shareholders to sell their shares to Vince McMahon. This move allowed McMahon to expand his influence and take another big step toward transforming wrestling into the global phenomenon it is today. Later that year, the Briscoes stepped into the World Wrestling Federation. On December 28th, they had one of their most high-profile matches at Madison Square Garden, challenging Adrian Adonis and Dick Murdoch, the reigning WWF Tag Team Champions. The match ended in a double countout, leaving fans wanting more. But for Jack Brisco, this would be one of his final appearances in the ring. By February 1985, at just 43 years old, Jack retired from professional wrestling. He had grown disillusioned with the direction of the business, particularly its shift towards soap opera-style storytelling and the decline of amateur wrestlers in the sport. Jack walked away, leaving behind a legacy of excellence that few could match. Life after wrestling brought new challenges and successes for Jack. He settled in Florida and co-owned the Brisco Brothers Body Shop with Gerald and their brother Bill. For over 30 years, the shop became a local landmark, a testament to the Brisco family's hard work and dedication. Though he stayed out of the spotlight for the most part, Jack occasionally returned to the wrestling world for special events. In January 2005, he appeared at Florida's Wrestle Reunion, where fans got to see one of their heroes in person. That same year, Jack was inducted into the Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame, an honor that recognized his contributions to the sport. 3 years later, in 2008, Jack and Gerald were inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, a fitting tribute to one of wrestling's most iconic duos. Even fellow legends couldn't help but sing Jack's praises. Ric Flair, known for his emotional promos, often called Jack one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Coming from someone like Flair, that's about as high a compliment as you can get. In his later years, Jack faced some tough battles with his health. He struggled with pneumonia and back problems, issues likely made worse by his history as a heavy smoker. Sadly, on February 1st, 2010, Jack Brisco passed away at the age of 68 due to complications from open-heart surgery. At the time of his passing, he was surrounded by loved ones, including his friend and fellow wrestler-turned-nurse, Bugsy McGraw. Even in death, Jack's legacy lives on. He wasn't just a champion inside the ring. He was a pioneer, a mentor, and a shining example of what it means to be a professional wrestler. His career, filled with grit, passion, and incredible matches, continues to inspire fans and wrestlers alike. So here's to Jack Brisco, a true legend of the golden era of wrestling. Thank you, Jack, for the unforgettable moments and the legacy you've left behind.